And so that allowed us to get to over 1,000 coffee shops and raise $3.5 million. A lot of that in our new design is still, those principles that we learned are still what we make all of our decisions off of. So the design may be changing in the future, but the things that we found through the Springboard experience and my project are still the pillars of the decisions that we make.
Hey, I'm Eliza from Springboard. I'm here today with Brenden Martin, the co-founder of Joe, a mobile ordering app for coffee. So could you please tell us a little bit about Joe, the Starbucks for indie coffee, and how it all works?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me here today. Super excited to talk to other potential Springboard students. But yeah, so Joe is really a tool, a resource for independent coffee shops to really level the playing field so that they have the same resources and the access to technology and marketing tools and loyalty programs that Starbucks has so that they can serve their customers and deliver really amazing customer experiences. So the way that it works is just as you would with the Starbucks app. You can download it. You can also do online ordering, and it's all connected. It's based off of your geolocation. So when you open up the application, you can find your favorite coffee shop in your neighborhood. You can build your drink exactly how you like it, place the order, tip your barista, because that's always important. Once the baristas receive the order, they let you know that it started and when it's ready, so you can walk in, grab your coffee, and go.
That sounds fantastic. I would love to be using that right now. So you enrolled in the UX bootcamp. Tell me a little bit about that experience.
I wanted to continue my education in my pursuit of building out this next startup, which was Joe. And so what I loved about Springboard was how flexible it was. It was around my own time, my own schedule, and I had a mentor that would help along the way. So I always had somebody I could ask questions to that would review my projects. And so I absolutely love the fact that I didn't have to go to a classroom. I didn't have to spend these huge amounts of money to learn the same things, but I still had the support of an expert in the space.
Cool. So could you tell me a little bit about the origin of Joe? I heard that you and your brother were both baristas when you had this idea, so I'd love to hear how this all came about.
After I was a barista, and same with my brother, I was a barista for 5 years in a really small town. I got to learn the ins and outs, and I love coffee. I love the customers. As a barista, you're not just making great coffee, but you're also the therapist oftentimes for your customers. So, it's really important that we keep that part of our mission and our culture as a company. So after being a barista and running out drinks to cars and seeing cars pull off because they can't wait in line long enough to get to the window to place their order, it was all sort of like this underlying learnings and knowledge that I had, where my brother and I were driving back to Seattle from Tri-Cities in our home visiting our family for Thanksgiving, where we needed to get a coffee, and every place had at least a 30-minute wait in the drive-thru, and we had a 4-hour drive ahead of us. So it was right then and there where we looked at each other and we're like, man, I wish we could just take our phone and send them our order and they could start making it, because it's crazy that we have to wait in line in 2015. And this is right before Starbucks rolled out with their mobile ordering. So that's where the ideas kind of spawned. We saw Starbucks roll out with mobile ordering, and initially we were like, oh man, we missed our opportunity to do something big. And then we quickly realized, well, Starbucks and indie coffee are two completely different categories and industries, and lucky enough for us, they're validating the concept, they're creating the customer demand and the want.
So I heard that your first capstone project was actually the MVP of Joe. So can you tell me a little about the project and what that process was like?
The capstone project was on the merchant-facing tablet. And that merchant experience from the sign up to receiving and accepting orders. My mentor suggested that for my capstone, you want to keep it more narrow in scope. And I'm glad he mentioned that, because otherwise it would have been just an absolutely massive project. But the biggest things I took away from that were the upfront research and sort of organization of how you begin a project. Getting into the coffee shops, creating the customer surveys, gathering the data, pulling insights from what is actually wanted and needed really surface things that we still hold truth to be our like core pillars today. For example, like it needs to fit into the workflow. And so every design decision is around how do we become the least minimal friction for a barista who is busy, overwhelmed, bombarded with the 6 to 10 a.m. rush. And so it was those insights that informed how we lay out the screen, how many taps is it to fulfill an order, and really push ourselves into the design to keep it as minimal as possible.
You just told me a bit about this MVP that you created, and I heard that you actually used that MVP for the first few years of Joe being in existence. Can you tell me a little bit about why that MVP worked and how Springboard helped to make that happen?
The MVP, I was lucky enough to be able to do the sit down, the research. A lot of times in startups, you're sort of just like trying things real quickly and replacing them as you go and learn that they don't work. But luckily, the process through Springboard allowed us to really vet out some of the nuances around how do orders get received, how are they canceled. All those small things that you need to consider, and like those edge cases were considered and built into our MVP. And that really allowed us to give the baristas an amazing experience where on the fly they can accept an order, they can put the drink directly in the queue, they can cancel it and let them know why, they can do refunds, do all these really important things for a barista to be able to do without it bombarding them and creating a bottleneck in their workflow.
Right, that makes sense. And so you came into this boot camp sort of with goals and with a real way that you wanted to use your boot camp experience. How did that color your Springboard experience?
I think it really helped. I don't think that, I think you could do Springboard and still get a ton of value out of it if you don't come in with an idea or a concept. But I definitely was very narrowed in on a concept. I knew exactly what I wanted to build. What I loved about Springboard is that I learned the right way to research and start developing out and building like the pre-MVP. It really helped keep me focused, and throughout the entire process I was going through the lessons and was able to directly look at the project that I want to build and have it directly impact that.
Yeah, that's really cool that you were able to apply what you were learning so directly to the real world. I think that's a really incredible experience, and I'm so happy that that worked out. Tell me a little bit about your Springboard mentor. How did they influence and help provide feedback? What was your experience like with them?
Yeah, it was really great. I wasn't quite sure what to expect on that interaction being remote, but I was really blown away at the level of detail and the effort that they put into it too. I think there's sort of two sides here. You're gonna get out of Springboard what you put into it. And so the more that you actually go through the lessons and think about it and write up questions and prepare those for your instructor and can have that dialogue, and the time slots that you're meeting with them can be really impactful, the more you're gonna get out of it.
That's super cool. Speaking of rewarding, what did you find to be the most rewarding aspect of your Springboard experience?
I think what I walked away with, and what the first thing that comes to mind is the process I learned in vetting out a concept and even a small feature, just how valuable that is. I've always been, my first startup was when I was 19 years old. I've had no problem having the desire and be able to dream big, but the value that you get in going into a huge concept and going into each feature and being able to vet it out with a process that gives you the information you need, where it's unbiased. Like, we all have our biases in everything that we do. And so I think that process is, if I were to take one thing away from Springboard, it's that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this call. I've really enjoyed speaking with you and wish you all the best, and Joe all the best. And yeah, very happy to speak with you. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you so much. I am happy to be here again, and I hope that if there's anybody out there that's considering Springboard, and if my experience can help them take that next step, because it's oftentimes very scary to take the next step in any type of change. You're in good hands. You will get value out of it depending on what you put in. And I hope that there's somebody out there that has an even more successful story than myself.